Hi, everyone. Welcome to Show Me the Money, Monetizing and Scaling MEC. I'm Catherine Speglia-Nin, Managing Editor at RCR Wireless News, and I am excited to introduce our next two speakers, Joanna Newman, Global Edge Computing and 5G Principal at Vodafone, and Elizabeth Rumsey, CGMA Senior Global Product Manager, also at Vodafone. Now, before I hand it over to both of you, I do want to remind our audience that these two will actually be answering questions throughout the conversation. So please submit those questions and submit them early. Thank you both for being here, and now take it away.
Thank you, Catherine. If we go on to start the conversation, so show me the money. Let's start with why. Why has MEC become a strategic initiative for Vodafone? And for us, this is really looking at the perfect storm we've got of advancements in digital applications, edge computing, and 5G, which most of you would probably recognize as Vodafone's heartland being a mobile telecommunications provider. We looked at the coming opportunity with MEC a few years ago and kicked off our project because we recognized the potential for the 5G application space to be a over €1 billion market just within our European footprint over the sort of next 5 to potentially 10 years. And I think that's where we're all asking ourselves the question, is it 5? Is it 10? When's it going to be? But we do believe in the potential, and we believe that one of the key factors to bring that potential to life is to make the experience easy for our customers. And that's why we wanted to bring together the 5G connectivity and the edge compute to create a seamless experience in terms of the infrastructure that those applications can sit upon to drive change throughout the industry. If you go on to the next slide, please. What that means in practice for Vodafone in terms of how we've been working with both large corporates and ISPs is looking at the use cases that sit at that intersection of edge, 5G, and software-defined connectivity to figure out what are the use cases that will drive improvements for businesses, whether those are helping them to achieve top-line revenue growth or greater efficiencies to reduce their costs and therefore improve profitability. Um, over the period, I would say there's been a question mark around, is there a killer app for Edge? I would say, in my experience, I think that the answer to that is no. And to a degree, that's a good thing because that shows the extent to which edge computing has use cases that go across a wide range of industry verticals. And Joanna will be touching on that later. But I would say broadly, we see this coming across in 5 main categories. One would be V2X, so vehicle to everything, and the implications that has for the automotive and transport sectors. The second one is video analytics and streaming. The third is mixed reality, whether that's augmented or virtual reality. The fourth is AI at the edge. And the fifth, finally, is live video production. So, what edge computing can do to help the media sector. For Vodafone, what we've done up front to start to bring that to life is we've invested in 2 forms of edge computing. One of those is called distributed MEC, so edge computing leveraging our public 5G network. And one of those is dedicated MEC, which is edge computing that sits alongside a dedicated customer connectivity, in most cases, that being a mobile private network. So, again, leveraging the large growth we're seeing in mobile private networks across Europe, with recently Analysys Mason coming out saying that, for example, Vodafone's currently in the top 3 MPN providers across Europe with 13 wins that we've announced publicly just this year. So that's going alongside edge computing to enable use cases on those sites. In terms of distributed MEC, we're very proud that we were the first European telco to launch edge computing on the public 5G network in Europe. Over a year ago now, when we launched our first wavelength zone in partnership with AWS in the summer of 2021, following up with 3 sites in Germany last December. And I'm proud to say that as of this week, we have extended our edge footprint even further by adding a further MEC site in Manchester. So bringing edge computing on the public network to those sort of northern powerhouse cities in the north of England. And we are also working to increase our ability to offer pilots on the public MEC services in additional further European countries, but more to come on that later. So without further ado, I'm going to move on to the next slide, please, Joanna, to talk about our strategy and how we've looked at MEC. Because I've talked about the 2 forms, but how have we gone to market with that? And it's really been driven by what we saw in terms of what we were seeing from our customers and their needs. And it's a continuation, really, of the ongoing movement we've seen of the journey to the cloud and how that journey to the cloud is moving on to become the journey to the edge. So you can see on the left-hand side, we're about halfway through that journey of enterprise workloads moving from on-premise to being 80% either as a service or on public cloud. And what we saw is the 3 key messages on the right being that number one, that 73% of our enterprise customers see cloud as a key enabler for digital transformation. What that meant for us as Vodafone is that we decided to adopt a partnership strategy for our MEC launches, and therefore we have partnered with the leading hyperscalers. So, for example, our public MEC that we talked about is with AWS and our partnership with AWS Wavelength. And then for our dedicated MEC service, our first partner we've gone with is Microsoft for their Microsoft Azure stack. Secondly, however, the key point is that the majority of our customers are also saying that they're using multiple cloud environments, and the vast majority of those, if they're on public cloud, work with more than one public cloud provider. Therefore, our strategy is one of non-exclusivity. We've got a really strong multi-cloud strategy as Vodafone, helping our customers to manage that through our Vodafone Business multi-cloud platform. And then finally, seeing the trend of half of our customers moving to be on the distributed cloud, which underpins our investment that we've been making in MEC. So if we go on to the next slide, please. Joanna, would you like to talk us through how we've been bringing this to life through our technology stack as Vodafone?
Absolutely. So, hi everyone. Really pleased to be here, joining Liz and our product colleagues. And actually, one of the real success stories of what we've been doing in Vodafone with Edge and MPN in our cloud and security solutions is how closely product and technology really work together to define the future here. So we're working together to understand the art of the possible and working with customers to understand what their priorities would be so that we can prioritize our technology capabilities that are launched. And we've done, I'm really proud of the work that we've done in that space. And what that's ended up looking like is this diagram here. So this is a stack. I am an engineer, so this is a stack diagram. But it does show, if we expand on those application layers that we're seeing on the top and those verticals that we're targeting, and they're not really verticals; they're segments that cross multiple verticals. And Liz has already touched on some of them. Mixed reality, visual inspection. Drone detection and digital worker. We're all familiar with what those should be, in the analytics portion as well that helps that machine learning. And those are applicable either in a SaaS capability, or they can be purchased or they can be developed. And they can also work across all of the different types of edge that we're talking about today. So Liz has already addressed is there a killer edge use case? And frankly, Edge sits in 6 locations, sometimes 7 locations, depending on if somebody's invented a new one. And therefore, I think that there will really be key edge use cases for each of those types of edge. So visual inspection in a manufacturing facility is very suited towards a dedicated edge solution, usually combined with an MPN for the connectivity that enables that, which provides ultra low latency capabilities, versus mixed reality, which might be out at a conference somewhere or a conference facility, which might be working off of the public network. So they both sit in as many of the contexts and across as many of the types of hyperscalers as possible.
And Joanna, I was going to say we're starting to see questions come in from the audience, so thank you. Please keep those coming. You touched on the keyword there, latency, and I know that how we calculate that is a topic close to your heart. We've had a question come in that says, how can the compute and latency be estimated or calculated for the edge network? Would you like to talk about how we've tackled that in our technology team?
Sure, absolutely. So basically, there's a lot of different variables that can go into calculating latency. And I think that this is delivering low latency services is something that's going to kind of codify that globally. And Vodafone's got quite a strong contribution into standards, where some of that will be codified standards in consortia and GSMA activities, etc. What we found was the most reliable estimate of latency, so not the lowest value that I could provide, but the most reliable value that we could then pass on to our customers and share, is regarding the transmission time between the base station and the edge compute itself. Now that's on the public network. Obviously, if you've got a dedicated edge sitting there, the calculation can be the same. So when you are on the network, so the air interface, which has different variables depending on the type of device that you're using, the type of network you're using, etc. Once you're ingested into the RAN, be it in an MPN or in the Vodafone public network, to the base station, we're talking, or to the MEC itself, the number that we quote is at 10 milliseconds RTC. So if you fall into the catchment area for that. Now, I just want to work my way through this slide for a moment, and then I'll come on to the next questions, which are, really great, and I'm looking forward to talking about them. But let me just work my way through here. So in addition to this stack that we've talked about, so the applications and the managed services, and there's some multi-cloud governance and management that is also quite, that enterprises are quite interested in. We get into the infrastructure layer, and this is really where I come out to play, where we've got a dedicated compute that Liz has already talked about. We've got a distributed compute. We're also running a self-build stack as well to understand what that could look like and comply with some potential European community requirements that could come through. Don't forget that from a cloud and edge infrastructure perspective, we still do traditional hosted infrastructure, which has quite a demand as well. So that still happens. And then all of the different types of connectivity and cybersecurity. So the approach that technology and product have taken to formulate this portfolio is, here are all of the capabilities, here are all the pieces of the puzzle that can be put together to solve a problem for an enterprise customer. And therefore, Vodafone can go and speak to a wide variety of customers, a wide variety of people coming through our Edge Innovation Program to say, right, what if this works for you? Where are the gaps, to kind of drive that continuing conversation? And the reason why we need to drive that conversation is because there are actually a lot of conversations that are taking place. So this is one of my favorite slides. It really denotes all of the different places and types of use cases that Edge is actively being deployed in today, either through pilots and POCs or into full production, and just for you to be able to see the wide variety of places this is being used. And that's really why when we talk about, is there a killer use case for Edge, the killer use case for Edge is that there's all these amazing use cases for Edge, some of which will present themselves to be the best one for drone detection, or the best one for remote vehicle support, or the best one for in-car entertainment. And you can see here by reading through just the wide variety of places where Edge as a capability really adds value. So, we start with smart government and security solutions that can also take advantage of biometrics. Don't forget that edge processing, because it's done closest to the customer, you can also very easily comply with some local processing directives that apply to in-country data processing, be it for healthcare records or data sovereignty requirements, etc. There's even some gaming requirements from North America that require in-country processing. So there's things around local smart government and security solutions. We've already talked about drones and gaming and autonomous vehicles and public transport. And public transport in Europe is all sorts of things. So it's trams, it's subways, it's metros, it's overland, wider suburban train networks, as well as national rail as well. So there's a lot of different elements where Edge can be helpful, taking advantage of its low latency and its local processing to comply with local regulation, that it can be quite useful. One of the ones I want to call out on the left, if you work your way around the screen clockwise, is Festo and AR and VR training. So there's a lot of really interesting use cases coming from the AR VR training, especially for national utility type organizations. So whether it's an electricity grid or a gas turbine or a solar farm, etc. There's a lot of mechanics and training that needs to be done to be a skilled worker that can go out in the field and be able to maintain things. And AR VR training is really integral to that, as well as some field force computer vision to be able to assess, to be able to have a senior engineer come and take a look at something in the field. Now I'm going to go back to the questions here and see if there's any that I can answer yet. Right, okay. Do I think monitoring the SLA is good enough, or is application level monitoring within the same slice critical for enterprise customers? That's a really interesting question. So when we talk about critical use cases are those by which they could be life affecting or very substantial for the enterprise organization as a whole. So for critical use cases, I think we're a little ways away from critical use cases actually being rolled out for edge from where we stand today, especially those related to autonomous vehicles or transport, etc. What we are seeing and are participating in is some trials that are happening with B2X, and so autonomous vehicles in Germany, which is focusing on, well, when you have a critical application, it doesn't really matter whether it runs on a Vodafone network or another network. You're not going to accidentally fall into a Vodafone black spot and then find out that your car stops working. That's not very sensible, is it? So there's a lot of work to be done between MNOs. And again, coming back to Vodafone's contribution to the wider standards and why we participate in that, to enable those critical use cases. And again, once you're in critical use cases, then absolutely there are SLAs associated with that. So I hope that I've answered that question adequately for you. How do I monitor? The next one is, how do I monitor the slice or edge application in a multi-vendor ecosystem? Right, so multi-vendor ecosystems can cover lots of different things. So if we're talking about an application if we're talking about an application interacting in the wider ecosystem, there are many different ways to be able to monitor that application to satisfy the requirements of the application itself. Now, there are some very normal tools for being able to use that thing, Expo, etc. There are some very normal tools for being able to do that, but we are seeing that for certain types of use cases, we're having to go and define the capability to be able to measure that as well. And that's why we're working so widely in the edge space to help the ecosystem mature so that some of that monitoring can be done more readily. Now, I just want to talk about how we're doing that. And how we're doing that is really focusing on the Edge Innovation Program. So the Edge Innovation Program has been running for almost 2 years now. And it's been done in partnership with AWS. And what we're looking for is for customers to come and speak to us, or people to come to speak to us to say, I'm interested in doing an edge use case here. And we work with you, us and AWS and our partners, work with you to understand what that means and what can be done via the capabilities available today and the capabilities available tomorrow. And that's really the whole ecosystem. It's not just the two parties themselves. We give you some connectivity, AWS or somebody gives you some compute. It's that wider ecosystem. And if I think about some of the catalysts that we've been involved with through TM Forum and IBC, etc., there have often been 6 or 7 or even 8 vendors that are contributing to an end-to-end use case. So there's a lot of complexity in that ecosystem that will simplify over time. I think one of the things that we could do next is really talk about some of the successes that we're seeing in this space and also give a chance for any further questions as well. So Liz, back over to you to talk about some of the really big successes that you're seeing that you've seen from with your product hat on for MPN and MEC together. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Joanna. And I think it's worth saying that First of all, as Joanna talked about our Edge Innovation Program, one of the things we're proud about as a development in the past year is that we've built on the success of what we call EIP1, which was our trials that we offered ahead of the commercial launch of our distributed MEC service with AWS. We've now built on that and actually, perfect timing of a question that's just come in, to include dedicated MEC as well. The way we've done that is we have invested in labs, both our own Vodafone labs and also working with other organizations, which I'll touch on later, to help them with sort of industry labs in other locations that are not Vodafone premises. And so that's been working with Microsoft. And I also saw the question asking whether we offer dedicated MEC as a managed service. The short answer is absolutely yes. So the way we have taken our Edge offering to market, it does differ by market. So Joanna talked about the fact that one of the things that we've done across our footprint is we've experimented with different models. And so in our Italian opco, we work with a non-hyperscaler edge stack. And the way we've taken that to market is it's the infrastructure that sits behind a number of IoT low latency applications. And therefore we're taking the application as a service to market, underpinned by the investment in that MEC infrastructure. Whereas, for example, in the UK and Germany, if I look at distributed MEC, we've launched that as more of an infrastructure as a service. There are two go-to-market models. One of those is through AWS selling direct, but also with Vodafone as a reseller where we can sell direct to customers. And then to support that, we've developed a range of professional services that we call our journey to the edge, to help customers along that journey, in addition to the Edge Innovation Program. For dedicated MEC, we offer that as a fully managed service, working with one of our partners, Kyndryl. So that's the commercial model there. But going back to the slide, this to talk about where we do see a key vertical, especially if you look over the medium to longer term, where we see value for edge computing. The one we tend to talk about, I think, a lot is the industrial sort of industry 4.0, but I wanted to highlight healthcare and some of the projects we've been doing across our OPCO footprint in the healthcare space, leveraging edge. If I start actually at the right-hand side, this is an area where Vodafone's been focusing for a number of years now, where we started out with our Better Health, Connected Health report in the end of 2020, sort of at the height of the pandemic. It was written in the UK, focusing on the role that we can play in supporting the future of NHS healthcare. And that included a range of edge and 5G use cases, whether that was enhancing a CCTV system and body cams to help with staff safety, for example, paramedics who are working in emergency environments, or whether it was training with virtual reality. So that was the start of the journey. And we progressed and expanded upon that by bringing in the consulting expertise that comes with Deloitte. So we've just had our first birthday of the Vodafone Center for Health. And so this is where we combine the Vodafone solutions with that Deloitte expertise in consulting and focus it on the healthcare sector. And what that's allowed us to do is work with customers on a range of solutions. You can see a few examples here on this slide. So, for example, in Italy with the connected ambulance, this was part of our 5G pilots that we've been running in the Milan area. And this is providing it's a good example of the live video streaming vertical, sort of horizontal, sorry, of MEC use cases where we were enabling the ambulance to connect direct to the hospital to provide live video streaming of what was happening in the ambulance with the patient, sharing diagnostics. And also the staff in the ambulance wearing AR glasses, enabling them to access the patient history. They were then working with the hospital and receiving remote instructions so that they could do their best to help the patient. And when the patient arrived at hospital, the hospital was best prepared to support that patient. So that's a great example of a use case. Another one in the AR space is with Proximy. You can see here in the UK, that is looking at the idea of training. So surgical training, where we created a network across Wales of a series of connected theatres, leveraging edge computing to to support the training of those surgeons. And then one that I particularly like because it actually includes a mixture of both dedicated and distributed MEC in the range of use cases is the University Hospital of Düsseldorf, where we announced our partnership with them originally a couple of years ago, but we've been working with them on a project with a number of use cases. And the most recent one of those that was a couple of months ago was looking at a pilot of drones acting as couriers for the quick, reliable delivery of medication from the central pharmacy on the university hospital campus to the pediatric clinic. So another great example there. I'm afraid we are out of time in terms of going through more use cases, but there are many across various verticals, as you could see as the overall slide. Catherine, do we have time to cover the last couple of questions that were up on the board, or are we out?
Unfortunately, we are out, but that's also because we had such great and engaging questions throughout. So thank you, Joanna and Elizabeth, for this conversation, and to our audience for asking those questions and for tuning in. And have a great event day, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see if we can answer any of those offline. Thank you. Have a great day.
Absolutely.
Bye.